Mother of newborn twins gets apology from doctor after ultrasound revelation. Lily had held fast to the belief that she'd already battled the fiercest storm of her life when she brought her delightful twins into the world. Nevertheless, the lingering discomfort she'd dismissed as mere remnants of her pregnancy refused to ebb away. Instead, it steadfastly persisted. Every day, the feeling of unease grew stronger. After marking 3 weeks on her cherished journey into motherhood, Lily found her body reaching its limit. This physical strain sent her back to the very hospital halls she had left so joyously mere weeks ago. However, this time his visit was filled with fear, not joy. The unexpected need for another ultrasound caught her by surprise, an unforeseen setback on her road to recovery. Despite the shock, she remained there, her discomfort accentuated by the attentive gaze of many medical professionals. His heart was pounding with anxiety. What made her more miserable was that her twins had to stay at home without their mother. Her husband was grappling with the sudden burden of caring for the newborns single-handedly. Was he equipped to manage 2 newborn twins on his own? This situation was far from what they had imagined. Their dreams of jointly cherishing and nurturing their babies during these initial stages of parenthood seemed distant now. The current situation was unexpected and hard to understand. What really happened? In the cold, sterile room, the gentle hum of the ultrasound machine echoed strangely in the heavy silence. As the doctors ran the wand over Lily's still soft belly, their eyes widened and their frowns deepened. The images that appeared on the black and white screen contained a startling revelation that made them both gasp in disbelief. What did they see that made them so worried? The doctor's words, once tinged with professional confidence, are now tinged with deep regret. I'm sorry, he whispered, his voice shaking as he tried to hide the harsh truth. A truth hidden in the innocent echo of the sonar, a truth about to throw Lily into the eye of another storm. The apology didn't seem enough, the air was heavy with impending despair, but the truth could no longer be denied. When Lily left the hospital with her newborn twins, I felt like I was floating on a cloud, holding my child in my arms. Ultimate joy in his arms. However, this excitement proved to be fleeting, quickly fading when she realized something was seriously wrong. As the days passed by, Lily's discomfort intensified into a maelstrom of excruciating pain. She was tormented by persistent aches that gnawed at her body and sharp, piercing abdominal cramps. Even the simplest acts of mobility became a Herculean task. The brutal severity of her condition began to impede her ability to provide her newborns with the care they needed. She realized she couldn't carry this burden alone anymore. Her husband needed to know. However, when Pradeep heard his story, he was shaken by shock and disappointment. How could she hide such important information? Did he think they shared everything with each other? His silence shattered this illusion. The fact that his wife had to suffer alone while suffering from such a serious illness meant that something was seriously wrong. Pradeep was shocked by the sudden deterioration in his wife's health and wished she had shared her pain with him sooner. Realizing the critical situation, he insisted on going to the hospital immediately. This decision was timely because Lily's condition quickly worsened after their arrival. The wait at the hospital worsened her physical discomfort to an unbearable level that made her feel uncomfortable. Just a few hours later, when doctors could endure it no longer, they understood the severity of the disease. Situation. They quickly conducted a thorough examination of Lily, but what they discovered was shocking. They immediately planned an emergency operation, because if they don't act quickly, they could lose their lives. Pradeep's mind was filled with questions. What made Lily fall ill so suddenly? Can doctors save her with this emergency surgery? And will Lily be able to fully recover to be with their new twins? The thought of her not being able to do that was too painful to contemplate. It seems like just yesterday they were filled with joy and relief. Just 3 weeks ago, Lily gave birth to their beautiful twins. The birthing process was difficult and tiring, but as soon as Lily held Mia and Elijah, their adorable children, she told Pradeep that it was worth it. As Pradeep paced the hospital corridors, anxiously waiting for news from the operating room, he recalled this precious memory in his mind. They could not convince him that these precious moments of happiness as a united family were destined to pass so quickly. His hands clenched in frustration and despair. It's not fair. Life owes them more than this simple glimpse of happiness. The first week of their new chapter was a whirlwind, a time that truly embodied the phrase sleepless nights. Lily remained unfazed, however, her attention completely devoted to the happiness of the twins, ignorant of the world outside their nurturing cocoon. Gradually, they begin to establish a family rhythm that is in harmony with their own needs and habits. However, the serenity was shattered 3 weeks into their happy journey when a pervasive sense of insecurity enveloped Lily. At first, she thought it was normal postpartum fatigue, but it didn't take long for Lily to realize the severity of her symptoms, which went far beyond the usual level of postpartum discomfort. A searing pain overwhelmed her, an unrelenting torment that surpassed all the suffering she had endured while giving birth to her twins. The intensity of this suffering raised the alarm, making him realize that something was indeed seriously wrong. As day turned to night, Lily found herself writhing in severe stomach pain, accompanied by bouts of vomiting. After talking to her husband, Pradeep urged her to see a doctor immediately. However, Lily was torn. She had 2 newborn children to care for and didn't want to risk being hospitalized. Her anxiety was increased by the thought that her absence might affect the care of her young child. Despite her deteriorating health, Lily decided to endure the pain, hoping it was just a postpartum recovery period. However, his hopes began to fade as his condition worsened. Only when she was exhausted and unable to walk did she give in to her husband's pleas and agree to seek medical intervention. Pradeep immediately contacted his parents, who agreed to care for the newborn for a few hours. They had hoped to be home before dinner, but Lily had thoughtfully expressed enough milk for the twins in case they were late. But they didn't know that Lily wouldn't be home for a while. As soon as Pradeep's parents arrived, Lily and Pradeep went to the hospital. Lily's condition quickly deteriorated, beads of sweat running down her forehead as she clutched her aching stomach. Every time their car collided on the road, Lily cried out in pain, emphasizing the severity of her pain. "Be careful," Lily shouted as Pradeep ran to the hospital. She could barely stand it anymore, and the car ride seemed endless. Every obstacle in her path is a cruel reminder of the terrible ordeal she has endured. In that heartbreaking moment, she realized like a cold wave that this was no ordinary medical problem. This can be a matter of life and death. When they arrive at the hospital, they rush into the emergency room, expecting immediate attention. However, what awaited them was a chaotic scene filled with crowds. The room was filled with a diverse mix of individuals, of varying ages and with a myriad of injuries. Despite Lily's extreme pain, they find themselves stuck in a waiting game, which only adds to Pradeep's frustration. His impatience grew with each passing moment. How could they let his wife suffer without immediate help? As he looked around the crowded room, he realized that their wait for help would not be long. Lily carefully found a place to rest on the only empty chair, her body trembling with each painful jolt. Meanwhile, Pradeep was in charge of the recording process, his mind filled with anxiety and helplessness. The receptionist, trying to offer some sense of reassurance, gave an estimated time frame, ranging from just half an hour to the daunting prospect of 3 or even 4 hours. The weight of Lily's suffering proved too much to bear. "Please do something, Pradeep," she cried. Pradeep longed to have the power to alleviate her suffering, but the reality was cruel and unyielding. He could only hold her hand tightly, offering his silent presence as a token of support, but that wouldn't take her out of her suffering. After enduring excruciating pain for nearly half an hour, Lily's strength began to wane. She started to slip in and out of consciousness, and before she knew it, she had collapsed onto the cold hospital floor. The ensuing events were hazy for Lily, but Pradeep remembered each terrifying moment as if it had occurred just yesterday. It was horrifying to watch, and he knew that he would have to try really hard to get this image out of his head. Pradeep watched helplessly as Lily's eyes rolled back into her head before she finally fell to the ground. Her frantic calls for medical assistance finally received a swift response, and Lily's suffering was finally acknowledged. She was quickly placed on a stretcher and moved to an empty room for further examination. Driven by fear and anxiety, Pradeep rushed after the group of doctors, fearing they would take his wife to a restricted area. But a nurse saw the panic on his face. "We won't take your wife anywhere without telling you first, sir. Don't worry, we'll do everything we can." Despite some reassurance, Pradeep found his worries intact, his thoughts consumed by worry for his wife's health. Regaining consciousness, Lily found herself disoriented and struggled to make sense of her surroundings. Despite Pradeep's reassuring presence by her side, she repeatedly asked for him, a testament to her dazed state. "Where is my husband? Where is Pradeep?" she nervously shouted. Pradeep tried to reassure her that he was standing right by her side, but it didn't go through. After a few puzzling moments, her cognizance improved, yet she remained in considerable pain. Unaware of the series of events that led her there, Lily was just relieved that she was finally receiving the needed medical attention. The doctors launched their line of inquiry, echoing the questions previously posed to Pradeep. Their investigation was routine until they discovered Lily's recent childbirth a mere 3 weeks prior. In just a few seconds, Pradeep discerned a distinct change in their expressions. Grasping the seriousness of the situation, they wasted no time in arranging a series of tests and gathering samples of Lily's blood for further lab analysis. As tensions rise, Lily and Pradeep anxiously await test results, hoping for clues about Lily's underlying condition. However, doctors are still evasive and avoid any direct answers. To aggravate the tense wait, Pradeep received an untimely text message from his father. They cannot continue to take care of the twins. Despite their initial wishes, Pradeep's parents had prior commitments that prevented them from providing indefinite custody. The long hospital stay was an unexpected turn for Lily and Pradeep, putting them in a difficult situation. With no imminent sign of Lily's discharge, they were cornered into making a difficult decision. Pradeep had to leave his wife's side to care for their newborn twins. Alone in her sterile hospital room, Lily endeavored to divert her attention from the relentless pain. She attempted to lose herself in the distraction of television shows and mobile games, all while anxiously anticipating updates on her test results. A sense of desolation seeped into her, displacing her nerves. She yearned to return home, to embrace the normalcy of family life with Pradeep and their twins. Yet, there she was, confined to a hospital bed, adrift in uncertainty. Frustration swelled within her, threatening to spill out as tears. What was happening to her? Why wasn't anyone explaining? Just when she was on the verge of surrendering to despair, a nurse entered the room. His words were a clear announcement. "Lily, I regret to inform you that we need you to stay overnight for close observation." The thought of spending the night away from her newborn twins made Lily uneasy. It was an unusual situation and she was worried about Pradeep having to take care of the children alone. What if something happens to the twins? Can Pradeep take care of not just one but two babies by himself? She decided to call him immediately. Pradeep reassures her that he and the twins are fine. Lily really wanted to believe her husband's words, but she struggled with a feeling of insecurity. As she tried to stand up, she quickly realized she was physically incapable of returning home alone. With no other options left, Lily reluctantly accepts her difficult situation. She will have to spend the night in the hospital. Throughout the night, Lily's efforts to get some sleep were hampered by frequent visits from doctors, along with the incessant beeping of the machine monitoring her vital signs. The next morning, Lily woke up feeling a little calmer but still had many unanswered questions. Additionally, she misses the comforting presence of her husband and children. Luckily, Pradeep was already on his way to the hospital with Mia and Elijah by his side due to lack of a babysitter. But that's not a bad thing at all. Kissing her children again, Lily felt as if normalcy had returned. However, this brief moment of happiness is quickly overshadowed by the arrival of 4 doctors bearing bad news. Their expressions were serious and Pradeep could feel the aura of tension filling the room. Pradeep could feel the tension in the air. "Lily, there is an important topic we need to discuss," one of the doctors began. "On your ultrasound, we detected something. We apologize for this, but its nature remains unclear." A wave of confusion washed over Lily at this discovery. "Doctor, what is your opinion?" she asked, her eyebrows furrowed in confusion, her eyes dark with worry. "Is there anything we can do about this?" The doctor always showed professionalism despite the serious condition, attentively looking at the ultrasound image. "I'm sorry to say," he said, each word heavier than the last, "immediate surgery is our only option." "Surgery?" Pradeep's cries bounced off the barren walls, his voice choked with disbelief. "Why? Time seems to have reached its lowest point." The doctor gently but firmly placed his hand on Lily's arm to reinforce the severity of the ticking. "Lily, we need your approval immediately. Would you like to agree?" Caught up in the whirlwind of this unexpected discovery, Lily found herself speechless. The room seemed to spin around her, reality moving at breakneck speed. "What should I do?" she whispered, seeking refuge in Pradeep's eyes, only to find him also entangled in the maze of silence. With each passing second, Lily's panic increased. The doctor's demand for quick answers weighed heavily on her. It was a big decision, especially since she didn't understand why she needed surgery. However, the medical team persisted and it appeared she would not leave without a completed consent form. In the end, Lily agreed because she trusted the expertise of medical experts. Even so, uncertainty persists. She felt like she and her family didn't know why she had surgery. When she agreed to the surgery, the seriousness of the situation and the lack of understanding about it began to bother her. But there's not much time to think about that. As soon as Lily filled out the consent form, the doctors hurriedly prepared the operating room. It seemed like only a few seconds passed before they turned around and began preparing Lily for surgery. Pradeep was ordered to wait outside. There was just enough time for a quick goodbye kiss before they took Lily away. Hope this isn't a forever goodbye. As Lily was carried through the hospital hallway, her fear increased. With the speed at which they were moving through the crowded corridors, it was clear that the situation was dire. Everyone quickly moved aside to enter the operating room. But what's going on? And why didn't anyone tell him anything? At that moment, doubts began to cloud Lily's mind, causing her to question her decision. Should she go back? Panic set in and Lily opened her mouth to try and stop them. She tried to scream for the nurse, but the anesthetic took effect and she fell asleep. At the same time, Pradeep found himself abandoned in the gloomy waiting room. 2 choruses of crying children sounded in his ears as if he clung to the hope that his wife would return safely. A strange feeling of unreality overtook him as he rocked the twins in his lap. It was as if he was lost in a dream, a grotesque pantomime of their daily lives. Moments ago, he shared a tender kiss with Lily. His warmth and vitality could be felt on his lips. Now she lies somewhere beyond these barren walls, vulnerable to the surgeon's blade, a mysterious anomaly threatening her from within. As he tried to keep his children happy, his mind reflected their turmoil. Thoughts spiraled into a spiral of anxiety, the opaque veil of uncertainty about Lily's condition only adding to her unease. What if something happens? What if the doctor makes a mistake or can't help? Lily's first hour of surgery was extremely painful for Pradeep. With his inconsolable twins, he found it difficult to concentrate on them because his mind was preoccupied with worries about his wife. Luckily, his mother was able to go to the hospital because it was necessary. It seemed that the twins had an intuition about the danger their mother was in and felt her absence acutely. Despite Pradeep's best efforts, they remained unmanageable. Bottle feeding was completely refused, and even Pradeep's attempts at making strange, happy faces could not calm them down. Here it is. Pradeep breathed a sigh of relief when his mother finally arrived. He immediately gave her the babies and began pacing nervously around the waiting room. Beads of sweat formed on his forehead as his mind pondered the worst possible outcomes. Will Lily survive the surgery? How could he raise the twins alone if the unthinkable happened? His thoughts were filled with all kinds of anxious questions. Desperate to appear normal, he lends a hand to his mother by taking care of the twins. Holding one baby in her arms while she rocked the other, their simultaneous efforts seemed to bring some calm to the restless newborns. The waiting room, surprisingly uninhabited, provided them with a private haven. Is this loneliness a blessing, or does it have something to do with babies crying? Pradeep was so lost in his chaotic thoughts that he was a little startled when he finally noticed the doctor's reappearance. Pradeep stared at the doctor, a silent question lingering in his eyes. However, the doctor's dejected expression made his heart ache with terror. Pradeep, the doctor began, letting a heavy pause break the silence. The surgery took longer than originally expected. His wife's condition is stable, but we encountered some complications. He continued, a glimmer of determination running through his voice. We know venturing into this operation is risky, but we are doing everything in our power to restore his health. Pradeep looked at the doctor, staring at his position in disbelief. Could this really happen? The words escaped him. The doctor's casual tone, as if discussing an everyday event, belied the severity of their situation. But what can he do? He remained helpless, forced to endure this helpless vigilance. He silently nodded and sat down. It might be a long wait. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the doctor reappeared. His expression seemed relieved, but not happy. Still, Pradeep feels his wife will be fine. His instincts were confirmed when the doctor informed him that Lily had completed surgery and was recovering. However, when he asked to meet her, he received an unexpected response. I'm afraid you can't see her right now. It's best to go home and come back tomorrow or maybe the day after tomorrow. This will give your wife enough time to fully recover, the doctor explained, leaving Pradeep stunned. He'd been waiting anxiously for hours, hoping to comfort his wife when she came out of surgery, and now this. This time Pradeep was not ready to back down. With all due respect, doctor, I absolutely want to see my wife. I have difficulty understanding your suggestion. I know my wife, and I believe that not seeing me after such a tiring surgery will only make her suffer more, he said. But the doctor remained determined. This stubborn denial caused an unusual reaction from Pradeep, one that neither he nor his mother had ever witnessed before. He seemed to feel like he was about to lose his wife again. He expressed his frustration to the doctor and asked to be allowed to visit his wife. However, this emotional outburst only makes things worse, as such behavior is frowned upon in the hospital. After Pradeep's outburst, the doctor summoned security to take him out. But Pradeep did not go quietly. He rushed away, leaving mother and child in the waiting room. However, his main concern at that time was his wife and the secrets he suspected the doctors were keeping from her. Running through the hospital corridors, he feverishly searched for his wife. At first he tried to do it subtly, but it didn't work because the security guard was following him. He didn't know where he was going, but he was certain that he couldn't leave without seeing his wife. Are the doctors mistaken? Is his wife in a coma? Why did they forbid him from visiting him? These questions flooded his mind as he rushed through the hospital shouting his wife's name, pursued by security guards. Suddenly, after another call to Lily, he heard a faint answer, Pradeep. It was faint and barely audible, but he recognized the source. Pradeep shouted her name even louder, and every time she responded, he followed her voice. This task was like finding a needle in a haystack, but he accomplished it. He was so close now that he could almost feel her presence. His heart beat at full speed, filled with hope of finding his wife. As he approached a room, he glanced through the small window in the door and saw his wife inside. She seemed sleepy but was fine. But when he was about to enter, the security guard caught him and pinned him to the ground. It's time to leave, sir. You must leave the premises immediately, the guard ordered. A feeling of failure overwhelmed Pradeep, but he decided not to resist. The last time he saw his wife was full of life and he still held that image. He determined to return home to take care of his children and promised himself that he would return as soon as possible the next day. Your mother is waiting for you at the hospital gate. They returned home together, the silence echoing the burden they carried in their hearts. Back home, when the children were fast asleep, Pradeep found some time to rest. His mother remained silent throughout the journey home, but Pradeep could understand her thoughts. If it were her in the hospital, she would never forgive her husband for leaving her. His mother called his actions cowardly, but what other choice did he have when two security guards were watching closely, waiting for him to leave? At that moment an idea came to him. He could attempt to sneak into the hospital when the night shift began. These staff members wouldn't recognize him, but he couldn't take his sleeping children with him. They must stay home. Sighing, Pradeep realized that he had to ask his mother for another favor, no matter how he felt about it. He knew she would never let him forget this day, but he had no other choice. So Pradeep begged his mother to look after the children one more night. At first she refused, but after persistent persuasion, she gave in. But remember, this is the last time, she warned. Pradeep knew she was serious. She never enjoyed the responsibility of being a grandmother. However, she also understands that this is the only solution for him to find his wife again. Pradeep stayed home until the clock struck noon, counting on a shift change at the hospital to protect his identity. He silently prayed that the watchman had also been replaced, otherwise, his secret plan could fail in the blink of an eye. Taking a deep breath, he decided it was time to act. As midnight loomed, Pradeep returned to the hospital. The emergency room was as busy as he expected. With an indifferent expression, he walked through the crowd, blending in easily. Careful to keep a neutral expression and avoid prolonged eye contact, he walked toward the bustling crowd, hoping his submissive actions wouldn't go unnoticed. His wife's bedroom, a location engraved in his memory, acted as a lighthouse, guiding him on his stealthy path. Everything went surprisingly smoothly. The tenderness is disturbing, even suspicious. There was no inquiry into his presence, no questioning glances thrown his way. Even though he hasn't encountered a security guard yet, he still maintains a high state of vigilance. He was almost to Lily's room, and a wave of relief washed over him knowing that his secret journey was almost over. However, when he reaches the room where he last saw Lily, he is faced with a terrifying surprise. The room was empty, she's gone. An internal curse echoed in Pradeep's mind, followed by a frantic question. What's next? However, he did not let himself be discouraged, determined not to give up his mission. Pradeep has ventured too far on his mission to turn back now, so he began his search, surreptitiously glancing into each room while trying to remain discreet. Finally, after carefully examining nearly 24 rooms, he discovered it. Lily lay there in a peaceful sleep. He slowly bent down and kissed her lightly on the forehead before sitting down next to her. Holding Lily's hand in his, he observed her sleeping form, finally unable to bear his own fatigue and fell asleep. In that moment, all his worries seemed to fade away, giving him much-needed rest from his worries. He could finally breathe again. For a minute you can relax. However, this moment of peace will not last long. A few hours later, Pradeep was suddenly awakened by a loud noise. A nurse's surprised gasp woke Pradeep when she entered the room, surprised to see him there. Glancing at the clock, Pradeep saw that it was only 5 in the morning. The nurse told him, "Sir, you shouldn't be here," but Pradeep asked permission to stay. After describing his situation as best she could and convincing the young nurse's sympathetic nature, she relented and allowed him to stay. It was a breach of protocol, but she couldn't refuse him after hearing about his ordeal. Pradeep was extremely grateful and vowed to remember this nurse's compassionate gesture forever. Placing himself in the chair, he observed his wife. She seemed peaceful, a sight he hadn't seen in a long time. She really needed this peaceful sleep after the twins had been under constant care since they were born. He hoped she would wake up refreshed and recovered in a few hours. 3 hours later, the doctors entered Lily's room. Although he was surprised to see Pradeep there, he was not completely surprised. He had noted Pradeep's deep love for his wife in their earlier conversation, so he agreed to let Pradeep stay with Lily. The doctor was there to show Lily her test results and discuss the surgery. He gently woke her up, and when Lily woke up, she was clearly happy to see Pradeep by her side. She tried to shake his hand and smile at him, even though his weakness was obvious. She is still recovering. "Oh, Lily," the doctor began, "it's been quite a trip, hasn't it?" He smiled softly, glancing at Pradeep. However, Pradeep fails to see the humor in the severity of the situation. The doctor cleared his throat and continued, "Okay, let's go. This operation was not without its obstacles. Your heart stopped twice during the procedure, so you may feel uncomfortable using the defibrillator." "What?" Pradeep shouted. He was shocked by this news. He didn't understand why this important information was kept hidden. However, the doctor continued to explain. "Your prolonged illness and exhaustion are due to the large mass of your ovaries." The doctor paused, looking into Lily's eyes. "Unfortunately, we had to remove your ovaries to save your life." Tears welled up in Lily's eyes when she received this news. Her ovaries were gone, and with them any prospect of future pregnancy. Although grateful for her 2 healthy children, this news came as a shock. "This procedure is important to ensure your survival, which is why you are here with us, alive and recovering," the doctor explained. Lily nodded, understanding the need for the doctor's action. This whole ordeal has left Pradeep and Lily in great pain. Although Lily has made a full recovery, the road has not been easy. She had difficulty accepting the truth about her missing ovaries. Physiologically too, his body had to undergo significant adjustments. But over time, she accepted her new reality. Both Pradeep and Lily have improved, leading fulfilling and healthy lives together. They recognized how lucky Lily was to survive such a traumatic event. No longer taking life for granted, they wholeheartedly dedicate themselves to raising their 2 children to reach their full potential. They are also very grateful for the doctor's help and turn their gratitude into action. Inspired by the care Lily received during her ordeal, they began supporting the local hospital that saved her life. They organized fundraisers and community events aimed at providing essential equipment and resources for the hospital staff. They worked tirelessly, striving to ensure that others in their community would receive the same high-quality care that Lily had.